these brothers rock Jesus pieces, but they really don't know Jesus. Just know that he's the seed, and please believe it. We got the keys to the kingdom. We'll never be defeated. Evil legions, all of these heathens and demons. I know you see them scheming, please believe it. We got the keys to the kingdom. We got the keys for these brothers rock Jesus pieces, but they really don't know Jesus. Just know that he's the seed, and please believe it. We got the keys to the kingdom. We'll never be defeated. Evil legions, all of these heathens and demons. I know you see them scheming, please believe it. We got the keys to the kingdom. We got the keys to the keys to the.
Y'all go to church? Sisters, y'all go to church? Y'all don't go to church? Well, that's good. What do you believe in? Nothing really? You believe there's something. So, okay, all right. So y'all telling me y'all not necessarily religious. You believe it's something. You believe it's a higher power. You won't, but you not really leaning one way or another. Okay, what do you consider yourself? If you're filling out a job application, you would mark down you are what? Would you be? Are you looked at as African American or black or Haitian or Latino? Okay. Same. Do you know how your people got here? Do you know? Spanish people came here to America? Yeah. How did y'all get here? Because you don't know? Evolution? All right, look. God is going to show you how you all got here, okay? Read.
2 Ezra chapter 13, verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away, kept prisoners out of their own land.
So when you look at the tribe chart, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are considered southern kingdom. It's divided in two. Judah, Benjamin, Levi, that's the southern kingdom of Israel, okay? Ephraim down to Naphtali was considered the 10 tribes. So when it's talking about, when we say Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, or Latinos, like, we're talking about Ephraim down to Naphtali, okay? So when it says 10 tribes, I just want you to visualize it's talking about you all, your ancestors. Read.
Those are the 10 tribes which are carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea, the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive.
So when we was captive under the Assyrians, he gave us permission, gave you all permission to leave. Read.
And he carried them away, and he carried them over the water, and so came they into another land. So they took this counsel among themselves.
So when you was carried to another land, your leaders of your nation, your people, took counsel together. Read.
That they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
What?
Of the heathen.
In order for somebody else to be heathen, that means they are different nations on the earth. So if we are the Israelites and we say everybody else outside of the nation of Israel is heathens, that means that we're all not one and the same. Read.
And go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
So the councils they say, you know what? Let's leave this place where we can't even keep God's laws at. Let's go lead to a place where nobody's ever been. A landmass where nobody's at. Read.
That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land.
The whole point of it was to keep God's statutes and commandments. So it was hard to do that under the thumb of the oppressor. They said, you know what? We have to get out of here, go to a land where nobody's ever been, so we can keep God's laws. That's the whole point. Now, to pause, what does everybody say when they taught us about Christopher Columbus, right? They wanted to discover the new world, right? But when he touched down over here, was it people already here or no? So how was it new? It wasn't. Exactly. You don't kick somebody's door and say, I discovered a new house. And it's a whole family living inside. You understand what I'm saying? That's the psychology behind it. Bring it out! The reason he went there was because he already knew people were there.
Right. That's right.
Read.
That they might there keep their statutes which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river.
So it's showing you the pathway in which they took. Read.
For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half.
It took about a year and a half to get from one side of the earth to the other, right? Because remember, most people dwelled in the east. You all moved west. Read.
And the same region is called Arsaret.
That same landmass you all traveled to is called what?
Arsaret.
Now, what we're going to do is get to, what's this? The Jewish Encyclopedia? The definition of Arsaret. Remember, Christopher Columbus already knew people was here. So how did he know? Read.
Arsaret, Jewish Encyclopedia. The name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man.
Now remember, this is the encyclopedia, but we just read this in 2nd Ezra 13, right? Read.
Right.
In which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell.
Well, what?
Dwell.
Meaning you were all living here already.
That's
Read.
right.
Observing the law of Moses.
Observing what?
The law of Moses.
We just read in the Bible that you all came here to keep the law, statutes, commandments because you couldn't do it in Assyria. Read.
Right.
Until the time of restoration.
Until the time of restoration, meaning what? Redemption, when Christ comes. Read.
According to 2nd Ezra chapter 13 and verse 45.
That's what we just read. Read.
Columbus, Columbus identified America with this land.
Bring it
He
out.
identified America with Arsaret. Why? Because the blueprint on how to get here was already done.
That's right.
The leaders of the tribes had already accomplished this. So when he come over here and touch down and say, oh, we're discovering a new world. No, he came here with a Hebrew translator. Why? Because you all were speaking Hebrew. You wasn't speaking Spanish.
Bring it out.
So what Christopher Columbus did when he got here, all the atrocities, he brought the Catholicism. The first slaves in 1492 was actually brought from this side of the world back to Spain. So a lot of times we don't look at each other as the same people. Blacks, Latinos, even though we share the same communities, the same schools, we go through the same hell, we get treated exact same, but because it's a language barrier, with the crafty council to make sure that they know that we're not the same. Even though no matter what community or ghetto or neighborhood you live in, it's Latinos and blacks always.
Bring it out.
Always. Got the same type of sauce, same type of spice, same type of swag. Why? Because we the same people.
That's right.
We God's people. So let's go back to Psalms 83. And I want the crafty counsel because okay.
Read. The book of Psalms chapter 83 verse 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thy enemies make a tumult.
So who did it? The enemies of God, the enemies of our people. And it's not hard to guess who the enemies are. You see them persecuting us every day, whether it's Latino or black alike. Read.
And they that hate thee,
They that hate God and us, read.
have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel.
What's crafty counsel? What separates the so-called Latinos and blacks? Other than a stop on a boat. We were both enslaved the same. 1492 for the Northern Kingdom, the so-called Latinos. And 1619 for us when they brought us over here from the west coast of Africa. It's the same. Because actually what they don't show is that we was being able to take refuge with you all.
Right.
Because we knew we was the same people. And the so-called white man didn't like that, so he persecuted everybody. He was hanging us, he was lynching us, he was burning us.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom.
He was lynching us, he was burning us. Read.
They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden one.
We are the hidden ones. Why? Because when you all just came up, you didn't even believe. I'm sure, because if you don't, y'all not religious. So I know if you're not religious, you didn't even know that you all's history was in here. It just completely mapped out in detail how y'all got from the east to the west. That's not taught in schools. It's never taught. Christopher Columbus discovered America. I'm trying to figure out how you discover something that somebody's already discovered. It's not new. Like I said, do you all live together? I can't kick you all's house. I can't kick your house in and say, man, I just discovered this brand new house. And y'all already got your furniture moved in. You already moved in. You've been paying bills. Does that make sense? So how is Christopher Columbus being taught in schools as some great guy? No, because y'all wasn't speaking Spanish. Give me this real quick.
Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. The Origin of American Racism. Ronald Sanders.
So this is a book, a historical book that we're about to bring out some references, you all, that lines up with the scriptures that we already read. See, the Bible maps out prophecies, but history shows that these prophecies came to be history.
That's right.
Read.
Page 365. The God of these children of Israel is the true God.
Matter of fact, give me this in purple. Read that.
Page 364. Waving a banner high in the air, the Indian guide soon was greeted by a puff of smoke far beyond the other bank of the river.
Read.
In response to his signal, the two men waited. Eventually, a canoe appeared, bearing 3 men and a woman.
So a Spaniard came to this side of the world and he was taking notes of the things that he was seeing. He had an Indian guide. Why? Because he couldn't speak the native language of the people already here. Your ancestors, Hebrew, he couldn't speak it. He spoke Spanish. So he had to bring another Northern Kingdom brother over here to help guide and be able to translate. Read.
All of them Indians, to the place where Francisco and Montezuma were standing at the water's edge. The woman got off and spoke to Francisco in an Indian tongue that Montezuma could not understand.
Montezinos couldn't understand the Indian tongue because it was Hebrew. Read.
Although he could perceive that he was being identified in the conversation.
The same way I'm on a construction site and I know when a Northern Kingdom brother is talking trash or saying something slick, because you can just tell when somebody's talking about you, even though you don't understand what they're saying. Read.
She then turned to her male companions to explain the situation. Upon hearing her words, they rose up. Upon hearing their words, they rose, went over to Montezuma.
So the translators went over, after they discussed it with their brothers, they went over to Montezuma, the Spaniard. Read.
And to his utter astonishment said, Israel, Adonai, Elohim, Adonai, Adah. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
So is that Spanish or is that Hebrew? That was Hebrew. And he translated she translated what the Hebrew was to the Spaniard because he had no idea what they were saying. Which tells you what? When the Northern Kingdom, the 10 tribes of Israel got to this side of the world, you all's natural language is not hola como te llamas. That's not the language of the so-called the Native American or the Latino.
That's right.
It was Hebrew. Read.
They had recited in Hebrew the fundamental credo of Judaism.
They said that in what?
In Hebrew, the fundamental credo of Judaism.
These are books that we are not shown in school. Why? Because once we have unison amongst the so-called Latinos and blacks, it's over. It's a wrap.
Right.
We still get called minorities. How? When we're one and the same. If you actually measured up every nation that's on this tribe, and we all one nation, how can we possibly be a minority? It don't make sense, but that's a psychological warfare. That's the crafty counsel.
That's right.
Read.
A brief conversation then ensued in their common ancestral tongue. According to Montezuma, those fluencies in it almost a perplexing to the reader of the narratives of that the 3 mysterious new companions, they told him.
Listen close. I want y'all to listen close to what the 3 companions told him. Read.
They told him that they were themselves of the tribe of Reuben.
They themselves was of the tribe of Reuben, the Seminole Indians, right? Read.
And that the tribe of Joseph lived on an island nearby.
The tribe of Joseph would be Ephraim and Manasseh, the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans. That's what they identified themselves as. They didn't say we identify as the Seminole Indians or Puerto Ricans or Cubans. No, they said their God-given names. Reuben, Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. But today, through Psalms 83, that crafty counsel, we don't call ourselves Reuben, Judah. We don't call ourselves Levi, Benjamin. We call ourselves Cuban. We call ourselves Puerto Rican, Indian, Mexican, American Black. What the hell is that? That don't even sound like a nation. That sounds like a color you find in a crayon box.
Right.
What you got?
This is...
Any questions so far? Y'all understand what I'm saying? Y'all understand what the Lord bringing up? Okay, read.
This is Indians, Blacks, Black Indians, a hidden heritage. Page 13. To prevent Africans and Native Americans from uniting.
To prevent who?
To prevent Africans,
The so-called blacks, read.
and Native Americans
Who we know today are called Latinos, read.
from uniting.
From uniting, what they do.
Europeans played skillfully on racial differences and ethnic rivalries. They kept the pot of anonymity boiling, animosity boiling. Whites turned Indians into slaveholders and slave owners, and Africans into Indian fighters.
They pitted us one against another. And it still shows to this day. That's why we don't look at each other as the same people. And we go against what our eyes show us based on what we're seeing and show in our school system and in the media. Because what your eyes tell you when you're in your neighborhoods, you see so-called blacks and so-called Hispanics. No matter what city across the world you go in, you always going to see us together, especially here in America. But the media tells you we're not the same people, yet we live our lives amongst one another all the time, generation after generation. Why is that? That's the brainwashing of our people. That's that crafty counsel. Read, and we read about some of it now. Read.
Light-skinned Africans were pitted against dark-skinned.
That still happens to this day. Oh, you acting real light-skinned. Oh, that's dark-skinned behavior. The brown paper bag test.
When I applied to Fisk University, you had to have a photograph. And for the most part, Fisk, Howard, and other schools, the lighter you were, the more likely you were to get into those schools.
All black schools
All
still
black
had
schools,
their
yes.
color gradation.
And those were the private schools. The public schools, you didn't have to submit a picture because it was assumed that the public school would have to let all black children, all black students in regardless of the color of their skin. But again, the lighter the child, the more likely they were to even to get into the state-supported schools as well. It's just that no picture was required. But there were some issues there. So this was the color consciousness issue inside
the paper bag, the brown paper
the
bag
brown
test.
paper bag test.
All these different things. Dark-skinned sisters hate on light-skinned sisters and vice versa. Brothers, a common proverb is brothers prefer lighter-skinned sisters over dark-skinned sisters. The hair texture, woolly hair over of long hair. These are all things that they use to pit us against each other. Now you read hundreds of years later, we still practicing the same stupid ass mess. Why? Because that's the crafty counsel coming to fruition for the so-called white man, and we refuse to acknowledge reality. Read.
Free against enslaved. Black Indians against pure Africans or pure Indians.
Notice the quotations on the pure. Because they had a lot of things when you were half-bred, or if your father is Hispanic, or your mom is white, or if your father's black and your mom is white, or another nation, period. But no, the scriptures say in Numbers that whatever your father is, you are. Let's get that real quick. Whatever your father is, no matter where he's at, or what he lays with, you are what your father are.
That's right.
Read.
Numbers chapter 1 verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees.
They declared their pedigrees, meaning their what? Their nationality, right? Read.
After their families.
After their families, according to what?
By the house of their fathers.
That's how we depict. So it has nothing to do with who your mom is. You know, if it's considered pure, you know, when you stay within your nation, all praises. But if your father lay outside his nation, you still are what your father is. That's the blessing. That's the blessing. Because if it wasn't for that, a lot of people might be in trouble.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold. From Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.